All right, welcome to another episode of the Construction Hall of Fame podcast. Super excited to have Leandris Weeden on the show today, who's currently a lean advocate with Layton. Leandris, would you mind, first of all, giving us a quick... Well, let me back this up. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Matt.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed our first conversation. And just to give the audience some context, would you mind giving us an idea of really how you got to where you are in your career today as lean advocate over at Layton?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I can really start from the beginning. I've probably been around construction since I was about 12 years old. Started working with my grandfather. He had a small company in St. Louis, Missouri, doing residential, like fire restoration jobs. So I started doing that, and by the time I was 16, and I could pretty much be a full-blown carpenter. I mean, we did flat work, roofing, glazed windows, reframing, demo. So pretty much everything like that. And at some point, I was probably about 17. I was like, I need to figure out a different pathway. Man, I like construction, but I don't know if I want to do the manual labor route for the rest of my career. So at that point, graduated from high school, went to college in Illinois, graduated from SIU Edwardsville, got a degree in construction management, business minor, and been working in the commercial construction industry ever since. So.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, what was the first thing that really inspired you to not want to do the manual labor and to get into a different side of construction?
I think the first thing that really inspired me was looking at some of the folks that I saw around me that had been doing, masonry work or carpenter all their life, and they were physically, they were kind of beat up and decrepit. I mean, they're pretty sharp mentally, and I was like, there's got to be a better way, to get to where I want to go. And that's also kind of ironically what I try to do now is try to figure out a better way to build and deliver projects to owners and clients. So.
It's so interesting. The reason I ask that is because a lot of time in life, you find you're the mix of like the 5 people you hang around most. And so you found yourself in an environment where you're surrounded by people doing manual labor. And it seems like you said to yourself, okay, I can see where my life is going. I can see the path I'm heading down. Did you have any shift of scenery or shift of environment, hanging around different types of people, meeting new types of mentors to help you break in? Or how did that go?
To be honest, it was kind of all trial and error. I mean, I come from a family, pretty much I was a first generation college student. So my parents, my grandparents, they never attended college, didn't really know anything about post-secondary education. I mean, quite frankly, in high school, we had guidance counselors and stuff like that, but nobody was really giving us a solid direction as far as, hey, you need to do this if this is the pathway you want to choose. So it was kind of all hit and miss. I did have a couple college coaches who encouraged me to go to college, but it was mostly because I wanted to pursue athletic endeavors in school. So it's like, if you want to do that, you really need to figure out a way to get into college. And probably athletics is what spurred me more so to even want to go to college versus, hey, I just want to do this just because.
That makes sense. What type of athletic background do you have?
High school, I was involved in track and field, football, and wrestling. So I was actually all-state in all 3. Went to college, played football for a year in a D2 school in Missouri. Then I transferred to SIU Edwardsville and was an All-American there and shot put and hammer throw.
That's a high performer right there. Whew. Wow. No joke. So have you felt that sports has been able to help translate into like your success as a construction professional? And if so, how?
Absolutely 100%. I believe sports, number one, it really teaches you discipline because I can remember times when I was wrestling and, other people might be outside playing. I'm trying to cut weight to make weight. I'm trying to watch what I eat. And I would go home after practice. I'd go run, 2 or 3 miles. I'd go in my basement. Had this little basement. The house may have been, 1,500 square feet. I'd be in the basement, literally shadow wrestling, practicing. So I think that sports side of things taught me a little bit about discipline, setting a goal and going out and achieving it and then working hard to get to that goal.
Yeah, I come from a sports background as well, played D1 baseball, it's actually a couple of different schools. And the school I actually got the most out of was an NAIA school. It was my final school called Lewis Clark State. And it was pretty much, in some ways, like a military academy. It was, from what I had experienced in the past, at least, like they drilled us every day. You're up at 5 a.m., you're working out. If you're at an 18-hour bus ride, which I think it was our longest was maybe 18 hours for a bus ride to get back, and we get back at 1 a.m., we're back in the weight room at 5 a.m. Time doesn't stop. Like you have to, enforce your habits habits, stick to them. And that discipline is something that I could say I personally took away from sports as well. Literally that last school, I can say, changed my life and got me to at least where we're at today, and it's going to keep me pushing to become better every day. So I can totally relate there. Moving on a little bit, I mean, when he talks about like, what do you love about being at the place you work at? When it comes to Layton, what do you love about working at Layton?
I've been at Layton now for a year and a half, almost 2 years. One of the things I like is the business group I work in, the healthcare business group. It gives you an opportunity to build some meaningful projects. And by meaningful, I mean it's nice to build nice projects, warehouses, office buildings, skyscrapers, even like airports and stuff. But when you're building healthcare projects, it's just something about the end purpose of it that is going to serve the community and the people that it's going to help out. So that's one of the biggest things and reasons that attracted me here to Layton was the healthcare group and the opportunity to impact the communities that we work and build in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a powerful perspective for me. And really, I believe that if we're going to raise awareness about how to continue to get more people into the construction industry and how to get this industry continue to, feel its, personnel issue of like the talent shortage, it's really going to come down to allowing people to see more meaning in their work as one part of the respect, right? And for you, meaning is helping watch, hospitals get built and to save people's lives through the work you're doing. Other people, they might say that's awesome, but my opportunity is actually in an underground utilities company where I help the water and the sewage get clean water and sewage or get clean water to everyone who's going to be drinking water in my community. And so there's so many different perspectives you could take as to how you get meaning from the work you do. But I think it's so important that we continue to drive this message out to the community that it's more than building a building. It's more than showing up and project managing or being a superintendent or being an executive. If you're an executive, you're driving all the rest in the company to build and empower them to do these things we're talking about right now, which actually has real meaning behind it. So, yeah, I think what you're saying is a really important message for everyone to hear in the community, outside of construction as well, because there's a ton of people who could have opportunities in construction that they don't even know about. But to take it a step further, you've been with some really impressive companies over your career. So what inspired you to make the move specifically over to Layton? Was it just specifically the healthcare group, or was there anything else that inspired you to make that move?
Specifically the healthcare group. I mean, I had a gentleman that I had been talking with, had a couple of friends that worked here that I've worked with before in the past, and I've always heard nothing but good things about the company, And so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, well, maybe I need to look more into this and see what this opportunity really is, especially as it relates to, the healthcare business group.
That's awesome. You saw the opportunity, jumped on it with a great company, and it sounds like you've been taking off ever since you've been there. So that's phenomenal. And just to kind of take that a step further, you describe yourself as a building scientist. Would you mind telling our audience what you mean by building scientist, what that means for you?
Yes, it's actually, I know a lot of trades, they kind of categorize themselves as professionals. There's even some programs out there that have building scientists as their, major you can get in college. So for me, building scientist, a scientist in general, is somebody who's always looking for better ways to do things and really scientifically. How do you do that? What's the thinking process behind it? What is the process related to getting to that goal and that output? So for me, building scientist kind of brings everything together. And it's like, okay, how do I combine all this knowledge that we have and that I've gained over the years to better equip myself to be a better builder? And not only be a better builder, to bring some science behind it and say, okay, there really is things that control the way that these processes go together. We just have to figure out a way to not only know what they are, but then educate everybody else. So that's really been one of the things I've been focused on the last couple of years is how to bring everything into one package and just make it like building scientists, like what it really is, because construction is great. It's almost like an art form. So.
Mm-hmm. Another way I'm hearing this is you're an advocate for the advancement of the industry. In other words, you don't want to just take things as how it's always been done is how it'll always be done. You want to see the industry be able to progress with the information we have at hand. And that's hence the term science. You really want to push things based on knowledge and test things to see if we can make it better to make the industry more productive as a whole.
Absolutely. I would agree with that statement 100%. That's just like, I don't have the same cell phone I had in the year 2000. It's 2023. that technology has advanced, and for me, construction should be doing the same thing. So there's always going to be a better way. It's a matter of if we're open to that new mindset of continuous improvement and continuously learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I love that. And then to take that a step further, it's like oftentimes to have different perspectives, it takes different types of people coming together with different backgrounds to actually make that happen. And we talked about when we first met, we talked about the lack of diversity in the construction industry. How do you think we can, change that and make construction as a whole more of a diverse industry, especially as we step up into like more of the C-level, the director level positions? How do you see us making that impact?
I think that's a great question, Matt. Statistics that I've last read about in 2021, the construction industry is 88% Caucasian males, meaning that there's only basically 12% others. And there's not a lot of people that look like myself in this industry. So for me, I believe in the power of diversity, not only because different people come from different backgrounds, they have different ways of thinking, they bring different ideas to the table. But in doing that, you also have to go out and recruit talent from different places. The Auburns of the world, Texas A&Ms of the world are great, but you can also go to Prairie View A&M, which is in Texas. You can also go to Alabama A&M, Tuskegee University, which is in Alabama, Florida A&M. So just diversifying where we attract the talent from, and then really probably getting into students' minds earlier when they're freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school that, hey, this industry has a wealth of opportunities. It's really all about getting to those opportunities, exploring them, and seeing where you can add value in that. But needless to say, most people look at construction as just like, oh, you guys do construction. That's just grunt work. You're out there not really educated. It's just some guys out there swinging a hammer and making some things happen. So it doesn't have the best, I would say, outlook for the youth, because everything people see on social media is not hard work. It's glorifying other things. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting to actually see, it's just specifically on LinkedIn, people starting to get the word out there more. Like I'm seeing at least more of, as of late, influencers, as you will, in the construction industry, speaking about what is the construction industry beyond swinging the hammer, banging the nail, getting things done, and really showing people what's behind the scenes. Because if we don't do that as leaders in the construction industry, who's going to? That's the question I have. No one will, most likely, right? But there's a huge need. Like all these infrastructure bills being passed, all these job openings that we see coming up in the future. If we don't keep spreading this message, then the problem will persist at a worse clip than we're seeing right now. But the thing I think is positive is we have people like you who are coming on this podcast, and we have leaders who are talking on LinkedIn and talking online about the value of being in construction, and not even just growing into a construction executive position, but some of the benefits of maybe being in the trades as well, because the trades are something where people have a stigma as well, but people make six-figure careers and they could change their life actually working in the trades like that. So there's a ton of opportunity, and I think, like you said, pulling from different sources, finding different avenues to get like more gritty or more like willing to like that go after it in different avenues and be creative and resourceful in your recruitment efforts is only going to be amplified by a good training process and a good onboarding process and good mentorship. Because when you bring in people who maybe have a little less experience, or maybe come from a school where you perceive the training in the college not to be as good just because you don't know what you don't know, you've never recruited from this school. If you have a support system to actually bring them on and onboard them and mentor them, then you're going to be able to mentor and basically take on a whole other level of talent that you would never have even had access to. And the people who are saying, okay, I can't find anybody, that problem could be solved if you end up getting creative like you're talking about right now. So what I want to know is, for you, we talked about this. It's like in construction, sometimes companies get the stigma, or leaders get the stigma of just throwing people out there to the field, seeing if it works. There isn't a whole bunch of systems and processes behind training and onboarding and mentoring. How do you think as leaders we can bring people on and coach them better throughout the whole process of onboarding to help them be successful as employees at a construction company?
The onboarding process, I believe, really, number one, like you said, it has to be a process. Too often times it can be somebody just coming somewhere and saying, okay, here, welcome. Here's your cell phone. Here's your computer. Your first day of employment, you contact these people. Okay, going about your day. There really is no follow-up. There's no connection between those new employees, that company, and how people at this company are supposed to do work. Because to me, a lot of times, we're in the mindset that, oh, that person failed because they weren't good for the job. But oftentimes it's usually culture and process is the two things that you can point to as the root cause of probably 85 to 95% of the issues that we see in the construction industry and just industries, period. So if you have good processes in place and good culture in place, you can take employees that aren't necessarily have to have a construction management degree. They could have a business management degree. They could have an agriculture degree. But it's those intangible skills that they bring to the table. And then how do you cultivate and develop those people with the culture and the processes you have in place as a company? So to me, that's where I believe a lot of the failures are at. I don't think it's the people. I believe that the companies and the leadership are failing those individuals.
Yep, makes a lot of sense, and we see it often. Unfortunately, some companies do a phenomenal job, and some companies could benefit from stepping up in this area. If you were to give a blueprint for an onboarding process to help, let's just say, a construction management professional to get up to speed and get running as fast as possible, what would be some of those best practices you include in that blueprint?
Number one, best practice, I would say, give someone that's coming new to the industry an actual mentor, someone they can talk to, ask questions of, whether it be questions related to work, questions related to benefits, just somebody who can guide them in that right direction. Uh, Also, along with that, I would say have maybe even some type of sheet that you could write up. I used to call it a gear sheet: goals, expectations, assumptions, and requirements. So the individuals know that, hey, this is what is required of me. Because typically, I mean, to me, if you don't measure something or if it's not written down, it's usually not important. So to say, okay, I want you to do these three things, but those three things aren't really measurable. Well, how does the individual that's coming into the industry and trying to be onboarded really know what impact it's having, because you can't measure it? And I think really the other thing is communication. Communication is a huge deal. It's really probably one of the most important things in the industry, but having clear, concise communication with new hires and individuals who are the managers and leaders within that company, giving them that ability to be able to have dialogue with them both ways is truly important. That would be the three things I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's awesome. What have you seen be the biggest barriers to communication? Do new professionals not have access to leaders? Do leaders, are they swamped and they're not able to spend enough time dedicating to these people? What do you see as the bottleneck there?
I think the biggest barrier is probably time. A lot of people say that they don't have the time, or they don't make the time, or they're too busy. But to me, I guess if because I look at it from a different perspective of things. Really, if you're spending time doing things that's not pushing you towards the goal, then it's kind of a waste of time. So, I mean, just with anything, our day is full of wasteful activities. It's a matter of how we cut those activities out and get to be more efficient. But a lot of times, especially if you're a younger adult, well, number one, if you're a diverse candidate, you don't really have anybody that necessarily looks like you, so you may be afraid to speak out and be like, I don't have anybody who I can relate to, because I mean, naturally, we talk to and have what they call affinity bias to people that look like us or people that come from the same university or same area of the country as us. So that may be one barrier, and then the other thing I think is time. As to me, the difference between a manager and a leader is, managers, they manage processes. Leaders really lead people and look for how to develop people and get them to the next level in their career, or if they're, whatever they're doing. So if people are truly in leadership positions, they'll take that time out to develop and foster those relationships with newer individuals in the industry.
Right, because in a business where nothing is more important than your people, what could be more important than developing your people at the end of the day? It makes so much sense, and it's something that could be really neglected, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, something I've noticed is companies who hold quarterly and annual performance reviews tend to get a lot more transparent communication, and their people are more successful, or ultimately they're able to find out if someone won't be successful because they're actually holding them accountable and having conversations about real goals, measurable goals, and they're able to track those things. It sounds like to me the same thing can happen in terms of constant communication from a weekly perspective, from a bi-weekly perspective, from a monthly perspective, perspective. It's how can we actually set aside time where we time block communication between our team to talk about these things? Because if we're not intentional about it, oftentimes it's easy for things to slip. It's easy for us to get busy and focus on other tasks that seem like higher priorities. But if our highest priority is developing in our people and creating people who positively impact the organization and move things forward, it seems to me that it would be of the leader's best interest to be more intentional as a whole on scheduling time to actually communicate and to practice leveling up, you know?
Yes. And then I would say along the lines of what you're saying now, if that is the goal, that means that you're really trying to develop that culture of continuous improvement and continuously learning. But on the same token, the managers and the leaders at that point now have to become teachers and ensure that the folks that they're managing and leading are able to take this information that they're trying to give to them and learn and get it to them and receptive to it. So a lot of times managers and leaders may not be good teachers. So then you have a breakdown and, hey, we want to establish this as our culture. But if you're not actively being that teacher and teaching that, then it kind of goes at a standstill. It's like, okay, well, what do you do now? Because this is what you want. So this is your current state, but how do you get to that future reality?
And that constant and never-ending improvement, Tony Robbins calls it constant and never-ending improvement, that mentality. It seems like it's something where construction as a whole can really benefit from that as well. Because from what you're saying, it sounds like a top-down approach is going to be really powerful as well, from learning how to teach the leaders how to lead better. They do say when you're teaching, oftentimes you start to become the best version of yourself. Like if you're up here talking all day about servant leadership, and then you go to your team and you're not a servant leader, you're going to go home and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not practicing what I preach. So as a teacher, sometimes maybe that could even cause you to level up, but that also comes from organizations realizing, hey, maybe this leader in our organization or these leaders aren't as effective as they could be. And we're getting constant feedback that their team's not improving. The communication isn't where it needs to be. So investing top down also and providing leadership training, investing in the leadership skills of the people who are the mentors in your company would be a really big benefit to consider. And that trickles down. It's like it all starts at the top, they say sometimes. So if that is the truth, then how are we empowering our leaders to be better leaders?
Yep, I would agree. That is absolutely the truth. And I think oftentimes leadership and leadership development may be overlooked, because, sometimes people get pushed up through the ranks and maybe they're ready for that position, maybe they're not. But it's just like, going out and say you're going to be a superintendent. Okay, there's no manual for being a superintendent. It's kind of like, all right, go out and learn. Instead of, hey, this is the process to how you do this. This is the way we do things here. This is our culture. If you follow these processes, come talk to us if you have questions. Instead of, all right, just go do it, learn by trial and error, which, it happens a lot of the time. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but there could be definitely some improved processes there that get us to driving people in the direction that we want them to go. And that's the same with leadership.
Yeah, and selecting that leader is really so important. It's I kind of relate it to sales. If you think about sales, you could be a phenomenal salesperson, the best salesperson on your team, but that does not mean you're going to be a great sales leader, because the skill set of being great at sales is more of a self-serving, it's like more of a selfish act versus being a leader, which is more of a selfless act, because you're not doing things just to close your deal. You're doing things to empower other people to get better at their job, to close more, to sell more. It's the same thing. It's sort of a mentality shift that you find going from a below leadership position to a leadership position. Have you experienced that at all?
Absolutely. I would say that exactly what you're kind of describing in leadership is pretty much the same paradigm in kind of the lean mindset, continuous improvement, because you're going from almost a command and control mindset to a more collaborative mindset. And you're like the orchestrator now. So you really have to develop your leadership skills and ask better questions and drive people to the outputs that you're looking for versus, all right, this is what I said, do, now do this. It's more so, okay, well, this is what I know we need to go. So I'm going to talk to everybody. We're going to collaborate and work together and come up with a plan that's going to get us to meet our schedule. How do we do that? How do we make this plan work? So you kind of move from that, hey, this is just me and my show, to, hey, you all are working together as a team. I'm the leader of this team. I need you all to help me lead this team. but I'm still the leader here. So let's go ahead and move in this direction. So
something super relatable that I experienced recently was I'm working with a company right now recruiting a CFO. They've been a client of mine for over a year now. They're an awesome company. I love their culture. They support their people. And something that really stood out to me, the leader of their company, the CEO, he's been CEO for, I think, like 30 years now or something like that, third generation company. And long story short, it ended up coming to a time where the CEO wants to step down sometime soon. At the end of the day, he's looking to step down and basically come into like more of an advisor position, like maybe a board, like a chairman of the board type position. The only problem that's holding him back from doing that is the person who's below him, one level below. Essentially, the CEO feels that the person doesn't yet quite have enough emotional intelligence as like the people skill to take over that president or that CEO position. So essentially, they're working with him to have more of those soft skills, more of those people skills, because they realize the importance of that and taking care of their people. And they also realize that a leader who is very solid in many aspects is missing one key component that will allow him to be as effective of a leader as he can to drive this company forward. So companies who realize this and are willing to take the necessary steps to improve this, I believe are going to see huge benefits.
absolutely.
And then kind of taking it a step further, going back to that constant and never-ending improvement mentality, what are some actionable best practices that you believe construction professionals can take in the industry to level up, to be consistently growing?
Communication. Back to the communication word. That communication, clear and concise, is very important in construction. I think one of the things that is actionable with that is visual communication. And that's just simply taking what's in my mind and making it visible to everybody else so we're all on the same page and we all can see. So we can all see as a team, we can operate as a team, we can make decisions as a team. I think that is very powerful because, I mean, a lot of people are visual. We could sit in this room and we could talk about things and we could say, I'm going to be working in, the southwest corner of the first floor. And you may think I'm working here and I'm actually working here. But if we can visually touch this plan and say, this is where I'm going to be at, that's very powerful. Not only visual communication, communicating dates, key important dates, I think visually making them visible to people. So when you walk past something, you see it every day. Hey, this is our substantial completion date. I walk past this every day as I'm going into the job site. I know what I'm working towards. I know what the purpose of this project is and the goal that we're moving towards. I mean, oftentimes simple things is that it really makes a difference because, I mean, if you talk to people, the tradesmen and women on the job sites, and you ask them, hey, how you doing? You can ask them, so do you guys know the TCO of this project? They don't. They're just there to get a check. So if you give people a sense of belonging and a reason to be at that job or that project, then it kind of makes it more personable for them. But I think it goes back to communication, and visual communication is a very powerful tool. To me, it's like low hanging fruit. It's one of the easiest ones, but it's one that you don't see utilized a whole lot.
Yeah, that radical transparency, I've found it to drive a ton of buy-in. It drives more buy-in from the team when they see like more behind the scenes, what's really going on, what am I impacting? Given that transparency, yes. It really does empower people. So you said something that really struck me when we first talked. So as we know, the construction industry is notorious for, not being the fastest in terms of technological advancement. At this point in time, it's something like 31 to 32% of projects finish on time and on budget, which leaves about 69% of projects that really aren't up to par. And so you mentioned specifically that if we're able to apply a few things, operational science, throughput, inventory, and cycle time, and we apply those to the construction industry, it can make it a lot better. How do you believe we can actionably do
that? Well, just exactly what you said. There's probably roughly a 68% room for opportunity in the industry. But unfortunately, most in the construction industry, even myself, we're not really trained about what truly has to be done to take a schedule and shrink things. I mean, we're trained to, hey, I use this CPM schedule. We push things out based upon this date. Even though it may not be ready or may be ready, we introduce a lot of variability into the construction processes that we have. And in hindsight, we really want to limit how much work we put in place because that's going to allow us to decrease our cycle times, which is really going to increase our throughput. So at the end of the day, we're trying to get basically raw materials and products and people, work them through stations as quickly as we can to turn over spaces and get those areas ready for the next trade and the next handoff. So really having a more of an understanding of what we'll call like Little's Law, throughput, cycle time, WIP, inventory. Those three things are really what's going to drive our schedules and make us decrease our construction time. But we have to take the time to understand that, and then not only understand it from the, I guess, the operational science standpoint, but how can we use it on our jobs every day? I mean, if you walk out and you see all this work in place, well, it looks great, but once you get so much work in place, it becomes harder to manage because you need more people to manage all that work versus, hey, if I can actually finish things faster in smaller areas, I can get people started sooner, and it's going to allow me to finish that floor and then ultimately that project sooner than expected. And then it also gives you a way to manage the variation that we deal with every day, whether it's the weather, whether it's manpower, procurement, because you're managing that in smaller portions of work. You're having those daily huddle meetings. You're talking about all these things every day versus a once a week meeting. So to me, that is one of the keys. There's a small percentage of people in the industry that are looking more into it. I mean, even myself, I've only been exposed to it in the last 2 or 3 years. But once you see it and you see how it all plays into play, it's like a light bulb goes off. You're like, man, we have really been missing the ball on this whole time. And that's almost like saying, okay, if I go to a car dealership and 31% of the time I get what I paid for, man, you'd probably be pissed, But in our industry, we give the owners and the clients 31% of the time. When we said we were going to do it in the RFP, that's what we give them. So it's like there's this huge opportunity for improvement. It's like, okay, how do we capitalize on that? Even if you can get 1% better every year, or that's 1% moving towards that goal of getting closer to 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I bet that people are not selling the owners or the people on the receiving end of this a 31 to 32% success rate. I'd bet the promise, we're going to do a great job, we're going to be on time and on budget, we're going to take great care of you. So imagine how much better the success of your business would be and how much more be-back business, how much more return business or more business you get from your existing customers if you actually took into account these things and got 1% better a year and delivered a little bit better every year than the people who are also giving them bids and who are also telling them these things. It's like,
I would agree.
It might seem like a burden. Oh, go ahead.
Now, there is a caveat to it. A lot of people do deliver on the end date when they say they're going to deliver. But my question to that is, at what cost? I mean, how many extra resources did we have to bring in? How many 70-hour weeks did we have to work just to hit that date versus if we were proactively managing and planning our work more effectively and we understood some things behind it, it can make things better for the people, the men and women actually doing the work, because everybody finishes jobs when we say we're going to finish. But I mean, we may have had to bring in 3 extra supervisors. We may have had to bring in another trade partner to help this trade partner out because they weren't able to do things we say. But I mean, when you update CPM schedules and you update things and you push things to the right and the date still stays the same on the end, all you do is trade stack. So as you get into this 60, 90 day away from that substantial completion from the job, you now run into resource overload. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to work 75 people in a 10,000 square foot space. So really, I think just being able to plan our work better and utilize our resources better.
Yep. And at the end of the day, a nice little side benefit of that, of not having those 70-hour weeks and not having to cram in that last 60, 90 days, is less flight risk, happier people being less stressed on the job. Because every time you lose somebody, it can cost you 6 figures to refill that position. It's very expensive to refill open positions. So long story short, if you're more proactive, you're going to do a better job with your clients. You're going to do a better job with your people at the end of the day.
And I think that, like you're saying, it also ties into mental health. There's a huge, I say, problem, but we'll call it a huge opportunity to improve people's mental health in our industry. A lot of people have problems with addictions to painkillers, uh, alcohol, different substances, and then the suicide rate. Our industry is very notorious for being stressful in people's lives and causing all of the side effects. But I think, to me, if we can plan our work better, if we can give people a better work environment where they're not so stressed about the things they're doing and we're able to make better decisions in our planning phases, it'll be better for everybody, especially the men and women doing the work.
Yep, 100%. And the thing is, I think some leaders might not even realize what's going on. They might not even realize how much they're overworking their people. So the more people like us get on this podcast and spread this message, and the more people in the industry speak out about what's really going on in the trenches, the more leaders will realize, okay, this is a problem we need to tackle, and it's more of a priority than we maybe even thought it was. And the more we can increase the employee happiness in this industry, that seems like a really great way to solve the talent problem as well. A really great aspect
Absolutely.
of having more people. Here's something I find really interesting. In the interview process, or when you're talking to a company, if you're talking to the hiring manager, if you're talking to someone who directly has an interest in hiring you, they're going to tell you the culture's awesome, the work-life balance is awesome, for the most part. Right? I'm generalizing, but
Yes.
you talk to an employee, the employee will typically give you the real story. What's really going on in the company? How do leaders really treat their people? So if we had more people in the construction industry going out and being an advocate for their company because they were so happy to be there that they thought all their best friends and all their family members should be a part of that as well, that's another powerful way to bring people in this industry is create happier employees, treat your people really well, and they're going to refer other people to go to join that opportunity as well. So I'm curious about this. We talked a little bit about huddles, daily huddles, and right there, that's the one big golden nugget that I think people should take away from this and put into their practice. It's like that constant communication with their team, like we talked about. Have you found any pieces of technology or software that can really add to like helping manage project life cycles effectively without needing as much manpower, or being able to help communicate even better with your teams on certain types of things in the project life cycle?
Yeah, I think there's several out there. Some of them are, lean collaboration tools like TouchPlan, Lucent, Pro Planner, V Planner. All these things are really designed to get people to, communicate what they're doing, plan their work better, make the work visible, which is going to allow us to have a better chance at managing that variation that we're going to come up against. I've also seen some stuff out there that's starting to get into AI and machine learning and really trying to track production and get a better grasp on what's being installed in the field, what we're calling the work in process or the work in place. And then how do you relate that to your schedule, and how are you driving those type of things out there? I mean, you got, different drones out there capturing work that's actually going on. But I mean, there's a lot of technology out there. It's really, how do you leverage that technology to your advantage? But I believe anything that's going to help us better plan our work, anything that's going to track our work better, and it's definitely worth taking a look at.
This might be a bit of a contrarian perspective, but I'm going to be pretty amazed, I believe, looking back in 10 years to 20 years to see where the construction industry's come. Because I feel all the people talking about how industry needs to advance, industry needs, to level up and, implement this technology. I haven't in the past felt that as much, or talking to people who have been in the industry way longer than I have. When I talk to these people, it wasn't as big of a press as it is right now. I think people are starting to see the opportunity as so many other industries are continuing to go further and further and faster. It's like,
Yes.
I believe we're going to realize that there's a huge opportunity, like you said. It can be a problem or an opportunity. There's a huge opportunity to help the industry level up over the next coming years if we really do indeed implement these things. And it's going to take people being the leader, setting the, like getting in the front and leading from the front. And other people are going to have no choice but to follow suit, because if they're just getting crushed by their competition who are doing things so much better, they're going to have no choice but to either adapt or die. And that's really the truth, just like Blockbuster. Yep. So for me, this is a question I really love to ask, because going back to your younger self, thinking about like how you started your career, you had your family upbringing, now you grow to where you are today, you've had a great career path. What would you suggest to a young construction professional who wants to be in your shoes one day, who wants to continue to level up? What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to listen more than they talk, because there's so much to be learned out here from listening to the people that actually install the work, older and seasoned veteran superintendents, project managers, executives. I would say get experience in all the facets of construction, meaning the pre-con, estimating, project management side of it, the field management side of it, safety, be a well-rounded construction professional, and then decide which way you want to direct your path. The other thing I would keep in mind is that this is a relationship industry. So a lot of times it's really about, how you cultivate and develop relationships with the people that you work with from the bottom up, subcontractors, trade partners, architects, engineers, owners, clients, people inside the company, executives, and then building that rapport, because it's almost like relationship deposits. You can't go and withdraw anything if you've never made any deposits. So people used to say, "Oh, I live by the golden rule. I treat people the way that I want to be treated," which is good. But then you should take it a step further and treat people the way that they would like to be treated themselves, instead of the way you want to be treated. But in order to do that, you got to get to know those people. So just taking a few minutes out of the day, talking to people, asking them, "Hey, how you doing? How was your weekend?" Even the question that I've started asking people, "Hey, how's your mental health today?" And sometimes you'd be amazed at the doors that opens, because people are really like, man, maybe this individual really is trying to get to know me, and they actually do care about me outside of this 9 to 5 that I'm here doing. And so that's kind of powerful in developing and cultivating those relationships, I believe. But those are some things that I would say for anybody coming into the industry to definitely take hold to and best utilize those.
That's huge. And one thing I would say, just to add my 2 cents here, is don't be afraid to communicate as a young professional. Like, we're talking about communication throughout this. Sometimes your leader might not communicate. So what are you going to do if you're in a position where your leader's not communicating with you? No one is going to come to save you at the end of the day like you're going to come to save yourself. So how are you going to step up and be a leader in your company and show everyone around you that you're a leader? By transparently communicating. Set the standard, right? Like, sometimes these things need to happen. I actually saw a post the other day by Layla Hormozi. She's Alex Hormozi's wife, and they're a couple business influencers I follow. And she suggested that if you're going to have a confrontation, or you have a problem, or you have a conflict you want to discuss with your employer, set intentional time to actually have that conversation. Set the stage appropriately, and don't just make it the last 5 minutes of, a 15, 20-minute meeting just to cram it all in at the end like she talks about. Actually go in with there in some intention and set the stage and be the leader of your own career, because no one is going to care about your growth and success as much as you are. So if you're not taking the grips to actually communicate clearly and let people know where you want to be, and asking them, how can I get there? What can I do to help you so much that I get promoted to the next step I want to get to? How can I stand out? How can I take the next level action and go the extra mile to actually create my own reality that I want? I think that's so important. It's not just being passive and letting life come to you, but actually taking the grips and actually taking control to some extent over your career. For me, I want to cap this off, and I'm curious, do you have any exciting future plans the team's working on, or that you're personally working on?
Man, I'm still on that same mindset of continuously learning, continuously improving. So I actually have some. I guess it's more like a course or some training coming up in California here in March, and it directly relates to what we do every day out here in construction. Is how do we understand the processes? How do we get more throughput to our system? So to me, it's really trying to define that pathway more, and then be able to take this information back and talk to the men and women that are directly responsible for leading these project teams, and get them to kind of see things from a different way. So that's one of the exciting things. I think any way that hey, we can improve the industry is always exciting for me. Because at one point I always thought there was a better way, but now that I'm seeing a lot of things differently, I'm like, okay, there really is a better way. And how do you get people to think outside the box and say, okay, maybe you have a point, but I've learned that you have to ask better questions. So for me, continues to read books, educate myself, and then get as much background as I can on, how do we increase what we do as a industry and make things better. That's probably my focus this year. And then, how to make Layton better. How do we get the people around us to operate at a higher level?
I think this right here is just such a powerful way to cap the show. It's like to hear you passionate about growth and passionate about pushing the industry forward. You're not just doing it because it's your job. You're doing it because it actually fuels you getting up every day, helping other people get better. You actually get excited by it. So we need to get this message out there more. I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk shop and really just share your mindset. I think your mindset's such a powerful one for people to adopt, that constant growth, really empowering other people. And something you touched on so many things. You brought too many golden nuggets to this show. Thank you very much for being on the show today, Leandris.
Thanks for having me on here, Matt.
Pleasure.